Hello and welcome to the March 10th, 2022 meeting for the Saratoga Springs Planning Commission. I've asked Commissioner Barton to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please recite the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so all the planning commissioners are present this evening except for Commissioner Anderson, who is on another assignment. So we have a quorum present this evening. For the city staff, we have starting on this side, Ken Young with our community development. We have Dan McRae with city engineering, Sarah Carroll with planning department, Kayla Moss with the recorder, and our planning director, Gina Grandprix, and then David with the planning director. All right, the first item we have on our agenda is public input. During each meeting, we have time set aside for any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, questions, or issues that are listed as a public hearing on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. If anyone has any comments they'd like to make that's not already a public hearing on the agenda, go ahead. All right, I'm going to close public comment at this time, and I'll turn over. Item number 4 is a public hearing on the Sunrise Cove General Plan Amendment from rural residential to low density residential and rezone from RA5 to R19, located approximately at northwest corner of Fairfield Boulevard and Foothill Boulevard. Morgan Fabrizio as the applicant, and then who is presenting that? Who's presenting? It says Kent Page. Okay, so okay, so we need to do a motion to continue this, correct?
We're going to have to renotice it, so probably.
We still have to do a. What? Okay. I think that's correct. We need to allow for public comment if anyone's here to make a comment on that item. So we'll open that up for public comment at this time. All right, as there's no public comment, I'll go ahead and close the public comment at this time, and then I will open it up for a motion to continue the item.
I'll make a motion to continue this.
So we have a motion from Commissioner McConkey. Do we have a second?
We'll continue this until further notice. Is that correct?
Should be on your next meeting, but you can stay.
Second it.
I think we have a second from Commissioner Barton. Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. So that will be continued to a future meeting. Next item, Business 5, Canton Ridge East Plat. C, preliminary plat amendment located at Loveland Lane and Mountain Shadow Lane. Saratoga 262, Julie Smith and Larry Mylar as applicants. Gina Grandprix, senior planner, will be presenting. Let me make sure I get.
All right.
I think you're.
So the application that you have before you is a preliminary plat. I put amendment on there, but as I was writing the staff report, it's not necessarily an amendment, it's a preliminary plat. In the sense that when Canton Ridge East submitted their application for preliminary plat, this cul-de-sac was included in the preliminary plat application. We asked them to remove that because the frontage for that road was owned by UDOT. They were already in negotiation with UDOT to acquire that property, along with the property all the way down to the end of the triangle. So plat amendment in the sense that we are allowing for the amenities to be brought in from the park because they're going to become those two parks, the one in C and the one in A, Canton Ridge East A, are going to be combined, and the city will take over maintenance of that. Another thing with this particular plat is that one of the requirements, if you recall back on the preliminary plat approval for Canton Ridge East, the continuous trail down to the park along Foothill Boulevard. The applicant is, and the property owner is renting the money for Foothill Boulevard. And so we are working in partnership with them in order to get this further developed. In order for them to have completed that trail, they had to acquire the property from DOT. They did give us property for the Foothill Boulevard project, so as part of the purchase of that property with UDOT, from UDOT. So with that said, it's a very simple subdivision. It's a 13-lot subdivision. There are some larger lots there. The flag lot, we have asked them to take that pole off of Loveland Lane and put it on Samba Drive, through the cul-de-sac, to make it a shorter pole. It made more sense to have them do that, therefore increasing the frontage on that one lot that sits in the front of that flag lot. So with that, it is an R110 zoning, and there was a mistake on the staff report that that Commissioner Cunningham had brought up. I believe I copied all of you on that. It's not a footprint development, so there is the minimum lot size is 10,000 square feet, which these meet. So with that, staff landscaping again, they're doing the trail along with the park down here in the little corner. So with that, staff recommends approval for the preliminary plat for Canton Ridge East Phase C. Any questions? It's a long explanation, so I apologize.
Is the applicant here?
Yes, Julie.
Would you like to come up and join us and state your name and address for the record?
Julie Smith. Okay. Oh, right there. Yep.
Yeah, and that mic should be on for you. Oh, wait.
Did a great job. So when we originally planned Canton Ridge, we planned for all of these lots plus on the other side. So our park has extra points and amenities. So that's why Gina said, okay, let's just put this in here and redo the preliminary plat, and we'll add it to what we already have. So we have sufficient park space and amenities in there.
Okay. I'll turn this over to the commission for questions and comments. Commissioner Kilgore.
Okay. I just was wondering, actually, because this is an administrative process, I always ask just to get this on the record. Does the applicant agree to comply with the conditions in the staff report?
Yes.
Okay. Do we need to add anything about the installation of trail improvements in our motion, because it's not in the conditions?
So it is, it's already detailed out in the development agreement that is a requirement. So they have to conform to that. They were given open space credit for that trail with the entire subdivision. So I don't necessarily think that that's required to do that.
If it's already in the agreement, yeah. Then,
Yeah.
Okay.
It's covered.
All right. And then there's a number of non-complies. So like topography and fencing non-complies. I was wondering.
Yeah, and they're working on those red lines.
Okay.
They were simple enough that it meets the condition that the applicant will follow or meet all of the code requirements.
Okay. And does the applicant anticipate any problems, any issues with that?
Not at all.
Okay. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Any other comments from the commission? Commissioner McConkey.
Something was mentioned about all the lots for 10,000 square feet.
So,
There is-
sorry, average. with the entire subdivision. So that's one of the reasons it was originally slated to be incorporated with the entire east subdivision. And so if you take the entirety of it, it averages out to be 3 units per acre, sorry.
Okay, I see, okay.
Yeah. So some of those, there is the allowance that in the code that gives the decrease of those. And those were already accounted for when we reviewed the plat originally until we asked them to remove it. So.
Thank you. That's all.
Any other comments or questions from the commission? When I asked about, I emailed you about the fencing and then
Yes.
the other thing. Will this qualify for a sound wall at some point? Or is that a UDOT?
That will be, so we don't have control of that. UDOT is the one that will determine that. Right now, it's going to be backing up to Foothill Boulevard. So it's no different, as I explained, than Redwood Road. So Redwood Road, we don't have a sound wall from the road, between the road and the trail along Redwood Road. So this is going to be very similar to that. Now, if when UDOT comes in to bring Mountain View Corridor and the freeway there, more than likely, because it's adjacent to residential, more than likely they will include that. But that will be a UDOT project.
Okay. I will open up for a motion.
I have, sorry, one more question, just to clarify. The cul-de-sac is Samba Drive?
Yes, and I have made that red line on there to label that.
Okay, and my apologies, one more question. The flagpole on that flag lot, is that going into the cul-de-sac? Is that
So
what it's-
yeah, so right between that,
Between the open space and
between
the,
no, they
Or just
actually,
between
Julie,
lots?
they actually put it. I don't have it open. I believe it's between the two lots on the end, on the south side.
306 and 307?
Yeah. They had the width, they had enough width
They
to be
do.
able to provide that,
Okay,
so.
that's all.
Okay, now I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the Canton Ridge East Phase C preliminary plat located west of Rocky Ridge Lane, based upon the findings and conditions of the staff report.
We have a motion from Commissioner Kilgore. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll say.
Commissioner Burns with the second. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Looks like that passed unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you. All right, the next item is a work session on Title 19 Code Amendments, City initiated. Sarah Carroll will be presenting. Okay. Sarah, can you push the button on your mic so I can,
Yeah.
I think I got you.
I'm
Okay.
just trying to get it up on here. What does that say? What? What dialog box?
Close out these,
Okay.
you just do one at a time.
What's that? Just do one at a time? Why is it in, okay. Okay, so let me, oh, did the PowerPoint get closed? Okay.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I just had the summary there, so. Okay. I only need it for half a second for that one?
Yeah, well,
No?
no, the other one. Hang on.
Okay,
Yeah, that reading view. There you go.
okay. So, back in November, we had a combined work session, and I don't think everyone was there. Who was at that combined work session?
With the city council?
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, and then Rachel.
And Rachel, okay, yeah, because you weren't on yet, okay. So if we need any kind of recap, I have that available. So, So one of the things that we talked about, we had an application at the time for a very large warehouse. It was 300,000 square feet. And then when we compared that to other buildings and warehouses, it was determined that we didn't really want to have a warehouse of that size, especially in that particular location. And then we also looked at several other warehouses in the area and how big those were. And then we discussed what we want to see here in Saratoga. And so these changes are a result of that work session and the feedback that we got there. So in 1902, we added some definitions and clarified some definitions to prevent very large warehouses. And in the draft, we also have a cap on sizes. So we have added the HC zone, which stands for heavy commercial. And then we've added regulations to that, and then added to the table of permitted uses, what uses we would want to allow in that. This draft discontinues the office warehouse zone. So one thing that we did immediately is the council asked us to do a pending ordinance, continue that zone. And so what pending ordinance does is it goes ahead and discontinues it while we work on this. So the council did that in December. So they discontinued that zone already via pending ordinance, and then this will officially adopt all of that into the code. And then we have taken warehousing off of the list of permitted uses, so then we've taken that off of the parking table. And then for the heavy commercial zone, we added architectural standards to make sure that we get variety and character. And then we also added, they would do the same signage that the commercial zone would do. So we didn't add a lot there, just that they would be doing that same signage that we do in our commercial zone. So what you're used to seeing. Okay. Okay, and so I'll go through these, and then if you have questions or comments, we can go through each section. So here's the definition here. So we defined logistics center because we didn't have that in our code yet. And then we combined light industrial and manufacturing into one definition. And then we defined manufacturing. So some of the reasons we did that was we don't want to see heavy manufacturing. So that's why we want to allow light manufacturing, but not some of the really heavy ones that need a lot of processing. And then we reworked the definition for office warehouse flex, and that is a use that is or that we're proposing to allow in the heavy commercial zone. So we can also discuss that more. One thing that came up is, or one thing that will come up is whether or not we want to have each building have a certain amount of office or retail space, so we can get into that discussion. And then let me go down. So we took out research and development use, and then retail and big box. We defined it better because we don't want there to be a loophole that would allow someone to have a little tiny retail space in a big huge warehouse. So we defined that a little bit better. And same with retail sales and retail specialties. So these changes to the retail definitions are to prevent that loophole. And then warehouse, we took out heavy and light, and so then we just defined warehouse. And our main reason for doing that is we're taking it off the table. A solely warehouse use. We are prohibiting that now. So by taking it off of our land use table, that's how we're prohibiting it. Okay, so there's that one. Any questions or comments on this one, on the definitions? Or do you want me to go through all of it or each section at a time? All of it?
Either way.
I'll defer to the chair, but yeah, I have some questions on the definition.
Okay, let's do that. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds like a good idea.
Okay,
Questions on
let's cut now.
definitions, and then
Yeah, because each chapter has a bit in it, so if we just
and
get
Commissioner Ryan was
feedback
first.
and questions on this section, then I'll go to the next one.
Commissioner Ryan.
Thanks, Sarah. I have just a couple quick questions. So on the office warehouse flex, where we came up with this 30% footprint, is that I just want to know if that's standard practice or if we're just drawing a percentage number out of Blue Air that we thought would out of thin air that we thought would look good. I just want to make sure that we're in line with, if I were, you know, company X coming to the city, like I would say, oh, I would agree 30% is roughly, you know, what people generally look for in cities.
It is. We did look at some other cities. Some do 30%, some do 50%. The ones that are doing 50%, we did find that the feedback from them was that it's hard to enforce the 50%. And so we went with the lower number that we're seeing, which is the 30%.
Okay, and then on the retail big box, it's a language that has been in there, but I just wanted to, this is again, just background understanding. So under retail big box, item D says has a regional sales market. Who makes that determination?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. I think that if we had to have evidence of that, then then we could request that. You know, that we as a city could ask them to provide evidence of that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how they would, I mean, if that's something that it seems we're asking for, at least in that definition, and having a standard recognition of what a regional sales market is in that case, I think we need to be able to justify that from the city standpoint. And then, sorry, there's a couple other things. I don't know, I'm usually not this picky, but a couple things kind of stuck out to me. So I would consider some more thought around that. And then moving down to retail sales and retail specialty, I think I understand why we may want to make a distinction around both of those. I get it, like we don't want to have, 5 shoe stores all together, I think is the purpose of calling out for retail specialty. But in the definition of both, bookstores are used as an example. So I would say one or the other for bookstores and what they are. Retail sales, bookstores is used as an example, and then an item B on specialty retail bookstores is used as an example. So I have a hard time, when I initially read through it, distinguishing why we would want to make the distinction anyways, and then I just found it a little ironic that in both definitions we're using the same example as well. So it gets harder to pull off the differences. And then that's all I have for definitions, Mr. Chair, but I do have some more.
Okay. Commissioner McConkey and then Commissioner Kilgore.
Thanks.
Sorry, John, maybe I turned you off.
The office warehouse flex, one question I have, is that 30%, does that apply to the whole building or to each space?
Right now, we would apply it to the whole building. So we could discuss whether or not we would want to apply it to each tenant space. However, we don't want to eliminate some of the uses like gymnastics or climbing gyms or other similar recreation opportunities. So we can discuss it as part of the work session if we would want to require that for each space or require a certain percentage for the whole building or for each space. So it's up for discussion, really. The way that we wrote it, it would apply to the building.
The whole
It would
building.
be 30% of the building.
So you could have potentially, if you have a space that's got, say, 6 tenant spaces, then 30% of 6. Then 2 of the tenant spaces could be offices and the other 4 then could just be strictly warehouse.
Right, yeah, the way that it's written now.
I'm wondering if it's going to create any heartburn.
Intent for the city? I guess that's what we're asking.
It seems appropriate to me. Now, I'm not considering all the possibilities, but it seems to make more sense to apply it to each tenant space. And so if they were to combine tenant spaces, then it would still do 30% of that whole space that they occupy.
Yeah, I think if we applied it to each tenant space, we might want to consider a different number than 30%. That might be high. Or we might want to consider, if we keep it at 30%, that we say 30% has to be something other than warehouse, like recreation or retail or office. rather than just office and retail. So we could look at that different ways.
And that might be appropriate. Each tenant space maybe have, I'm just throwing a number out there, 10%, but the building as a whole would be, although that might be difficult to enforce.
Yeah,
If you're looking at having jobs coming in, for example, having any office space in there, then would potentially provide some employment.
yeah, and we can look into that more. If that's the direction that we get from everybody, we can reword that. So it was one thing that was brought up in our discussion that we didn't get into this draft was whether or not we'd want to require that for each tenant space, and if we do, what that looks like. So if everybody's on board, we can rework that so and come up with a number and some language that does that.
I think that might be fitting, because I'm thinking even on the flip side, if we require it for the whole building, if you have 60% warehouse, now that'd be 70% warehouse, and then they have another tenant that wants to do some warehouse use with an office space, well, they'd be committed to the rest of the 30% would have to be office. And that also would be difficult to enforce. And I don't know if anybody would really be keeping track of that. I don't know if that's practical, reasonable to track that. That makes sense.
It does make sense. It's probably easier to track it on a tenant permit than on a, a lot of times you'll get a shell and then you'll get each tenant coming in. So it's probably easier to track it for each tenant permit rather than the shell.
Yeah. And even if there was, for example, you mentioned gymnastics, something rather, in a warehouse setting. I have seen some that have a separate business that is a tenant, they sublease to a office environment type thing, just a few people in there that would still, anyway. Just a little added word in there I think needs to be removed in the retail big box technicality. The word shall, I think, needs to be removed grammatically.
This one? That one?
Yep, that one. As it reads, retail big box means a retail establishment with merchandise available on site for immediate purchase and removal from the premises by the purchaser that occupies no less than 50, has stock on hand.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I'm just going to highlight it.
And then another question I had, and I don't know, I said, can we explain the includes bullets? If club membership is not offered, is it then no longer a big box retail? Number E. Says it includes.
Yeah, that's a good question. That was already, so that's a good question.
Might be something to consider playing around with on that one. I don't have any ideas off the top of my head to remedy that.
Yeah, it could say includes, but is not limited to, and that is actually already implied by using the word includes. So it's just, these are just a couple of examples that are included.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah. Sorry. And so we're getting rid of warehouse?
We are. Well, we're defining it, but
not
we're
allowing.
getting rid of it on the use table.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
turn you on as soon as he's.
So I wrote down in here, the definition excludes bulk storage of materials that are flammable, explosive, or hazardous. What definition do these fall under?
Well, and it excludes those meaning under warehouse, they're not allowed.
Okay. All right. Got it. That's all I got. Thanks.
Commissioner Kilgore.
So along with what Commissioner McConkey said, and then going forward, the owners get tenants that first come in, and then maybe they meet these, or they should meet these percentages and stuff, such. But then say one of the tenants leave, and then they have to rent out, release that space to somebody else, and someone else comes in. Is it the responsibility of the tenant or the owner to then say, oh, you don't meet the right percentage, and so you can't lease this space? So that's the onus that we're putting onto the owner. Is that right, going forward in perpetuity?
That's a good question on our end. I think we would normally have that reviewed with a building permit, and if they, a lot of times when they change, if a new person comes in and they're the same type of use, they don't need a change of use permit from planning, but if they're a different type of use, they do. But otherwise, it would be up to the building department to review that if they do any tenant improvement changes when they change ownership.
Okay, all right. And then you mentioned that we don't want heavy manufacturing in the city. So like if, I'm just thinking, if a prefab home manufacturer were to come here or wanted to come to Saratoga Springs, we just simply say, no, we don't have a zone for you.
Right, we wouldn't have a zone for that.
I mean, they would have the opportunity to come back and make a request to the city. Hey, include this in your land use table, put it in what zone I can go into. So the opportunity is still there for uses we don't list here to come in and really make an appeal.
Okay, so we would have to change the code for that then. Okay.
I mean, what legal has told us in the past is that, right now, so we're putting in uses, but we're not allowing them in any zone. That's more concrete to say to totally deny somebody. I mean, we could sit here and bring up uses for the next 12 hours if we want to. We're not going to have a table that's that long.
Right.
By putting some of these in there, that at least gives more evidence to say, yeah, that is not permitted.
No, I understand that. I understand there could be all kinds of things that happen, but for us, if we're saying specifically that we don't want this, then that means we actually made a conscious choice. But now it sounds like we don't want it until somebody comes and asks for it. So that doesn't really seem to be.
Well, I do think that right now that we don't want it.
Okay, all right, understood. I wanted clarification of what you said, so you gave it. That's it for me for this section.
Any other questions on definitions before we move on? Okay, go to the next section.
And for some reason, oh, wait, what? Is it not?
May not let you save on there. No, right.
What does it want to do?
It's
Replace it?
overwrite what you
Oh,
already
that's
have.
fine.
Read only.
Yes.
While you guys are getting organized there.
Let's go
I'll just
to
put it up.
version 2 or something. See if that works. Don't have much to save an application. Go
I
try.
can't save it?
No, try just on the S drive under planning somewhere.
Okay.
It's not let us save the changes that she did. It's, I guess run this CPU over here, so.
So just try somewhere else?
Yeah, just try somewhere in S drive, somewhere we.
Oh boy, sorry.
Yeah, go planning department, go code. Making changes.
Sorry, this screen is flickering and I'm probably gonna have a seizure tonight.
Owen said he's working on it.
Okay,
Yeah, go to code.
You did.
Code changes working.
okay.
Save it in the second quarter. It'll have today's date, so you'll know.
Okay, I'll just, yeah, well, I'll just still put the,
See if that works good. Okay.
okay. Now we can close that one and go to the next one. Do I have to find the folder? Oh, it's right here, okay.
Well, while we're sitting here critiquing your amazing work, just wanted to recognize your amazing work on this. That's all I wanted to say.
I appreciate it. Okay, so here we go, 1904, and we added the heavy commercial zone. You'll still see office warehouse because it will be allowed for anything that already has vesting. So if they already have that zone and they have a development agreement, they get to keep that zone. And so we're not taking it out, we're just putting in a disclaimer that no one new gets to use that zone. Okay, so heavy commercial, we just added this section is the purpose and intent, and so we added the purpose and intent of this heavy commercial zone. And really, it's mainly to allow the office, flex, warehouse types of buildings. But then also, and we put appropriate areas, aesthetically attractive. And one thing we do in the, what's it called, the regulations is limit the size. And so we'll get to that. And here you go. Here's the discontinuation of the office warehouse zone. This talks about those things that I mentioned, that if they already have the zoning, they can continue with it.
We still have to have a way to administer that zone and those uses.
Oh, go ahead.
This was done in the past with the PUD overlay. Council got rid of that, but you'll still go through the code, it'll still be in there.
And one thing we did is that all of those that have been approved so far had a concept plan, and the largest building on their concept plan was about 110,000 square feet. And so we put language in here that said that's the maximum size they can have is whatever's on their concept plan that came through when they got the zoning. And then we added regulations, and we just cleaned up this one for the business park. So minimum lot size 30,000 square feet, which is similar to our regional commercial zone. And then front, corner, and side setback, we put 20 feet. Our regional commercial is 10 feet, but we actually encourage a lot of buildings to be up closer to the sidewalk in that zone, and we don't necessarily want to encourage that in this zone. So we put 20 feet there. And then the height here, the interior side, so 15 feet or the height of the building, whichever is greater when it's adjacent to residential. So it's 15 feet, but if it's next to residential, it's the height of the building. And then the rear, same thing, 30 feet, but when it's next to residential, it's the height of the building. And then no exceptions allowed as far as like lot size and setbacks and things like that. Building separation, 20 feet. Just to create, because these are expected to be large buildings, so we want that to be at least 20 feet between them. And then 70 feet for minimum lot width and maximum height, 35 feet or we allowed an exception here that if they have more office, they can go higher. And what we did there is we don't necessarily want a building that has mostly warehouse to be tall, because that then encourages a lot of the shipping and receiving, the taller the building. But if they have a lot of office, we do want to allow them to be taller. And so that's why this is written the way you're seeing it. And then maximum lot coverage, 50% is standard in all of our commercial zones. So we just stuck with that. And then, so we put a maximum building size of 50,000 square feet, but we did put an exception. And we based this exception off of the building sizes that we saw along Mill Pond Road. So they had two buildings that were about 80,000 square feet, and the rest of their buildings were 30 to 40,000 square feet. So we put 50 as the cap, but then if you have a large property, for every 20 acres, you can have one building that's 80,000 square feet. So we allowed a large one on properties that are larger, but just one for every 20 acres. So, and then here's the permitted uses. So what we did is we looked at what uses are permitted in commercial and then which ones are permitted in office warehouse. And we went through as a group and just picked the ones we thought were appropriate for this new zone. And so we can go through that as a group. And then or I mean, you can tell us if you want us. So that's everything for that section. So let's go through this one and get your comments.
Commissioner Kilgore.
So thank you for answering that question. I had the question about why office warehouse was still in. I figured it was because of legacy, but I'm glad thank you for clarifying that. And then there are a number of uses that were permitted in office warehouse, but are not permitted in heavy commercial. One of them I understood why is because the school trade or vocational that is permitted in other zones. But for the other ones, bakery commercial and industrial laundry, storage, self-storage or mini storage units, the only other place that they were allowed other than office warehouse was industrial. And I'm just wondering what your thinking was on deciding that things like bakery, commercial bakery, and commercial and industrial laundry should only be allowed in industrial and not in heavy commercial.
Those are good questions. We went through it as a group. So those ones in particular, I think we just determined uses that are heavier uses, maybe we wouldn't put in this zone so that we encourage more of the, the buildings that are office, warehouse, flex, but the lighter uses. But we can take a look at any particular one. So if there's some that you think you want to suggest that we add, we can discuss that. And if everyone wants to add that, we can do that.
I guess my only issue with things like commercial bakery or the two others that weren't included is do we really have a lot of industrial zones where businesses like that can really locate to?
That's a good.
Since we're switching office warehouse to heavy commercial and we're not allowing those uses in heavy commercial, then they have to go into industrial. But we don't have a lot of industrial. And so that's why I was just wondering do we need to exclude them? I don't know how heavy a bakery would be, and so.
So in Ogden, the Wonder Bread Bakery was there. It is quite an invasive use. So it is a heavy industrial use, even though it was in downtown Ogden, but downtown Ogden was an industrial area. It was right by the train tracks. So, but a bakery, an industrial commercial bakery, a large bakery, is actually quite an industrial.
Okay. So I guess we didn't know that when we put it in the office warehouse before.
I think we did know that, but we thought of our office warehouse more of a warehouse. And then as we've had these meetings, decided that that wasn't how we wanted to go as a city.
Okay.
And I do think that commercial bakeries are quite loud. I think that was part of it as well.
They smell great.
Yeah. Okay, so if in the planning of it, you looked at each of those uses and decided, that it wasn't an oversight, that it wasn't included.
That's what we
If that's
did.
the case, then I'm fine.
Yeah, that's what we did as a group. So we had all the planners in there and we went through every one of them and had conversations similar to this. But that doesn't mean we can't have that conversation here as well. And I might not remember every comment that our staff had about why we put something in or not put something in, but we can try to answer any questions you have.
Yeah, because like the storage, and they're all inclusive. It's all inclusive. It says storage, self-storage, and mini storage. There was one period, I don't know where we didn't have a place for storage in the city, or we weren't really sure what to do about. People needed storage a little bit closer. We didn't know what to do about it. It was in the office warehouse zone. It's no longer. Now it has to be heavy industrial. And I'm just wondering, is that, there's no noise when it comes to office warehouse. There's no heavy traffic. I'm sorry, there's no, for storage, there isn't any heavy traffic and such. So I'm wondering why that has to be in an industrial zone as well, since we're kind of short on storage.
Well, I know the council looked at that a few years ago, and if you recall, they approved the change that they were seeing storage units come in. Yeah, it's obviously a needed use at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think the council wanted to see a lot of those in the city, and they gave it a separation distance, a half a mile from another storage unit, and
Right.
and restricted the zone. Yeah, again, like I said, it's needed. Most places probably don't want them in their city, but obviously they do get used. And
Yeah, because I know a lot of folks are looking for places to put their boats, in the winter and such, because their HOAs don't have places for that. And they don't want to rent a marina space for that either, a slip or something. So just things like that. Also ATVs, things that our residents do use in our city, maybe particularly because it's our city, And I'm just wondering if we had to have that discussion and we did put some restrictions, then why not, with those restrictions in mind, allow that in a heavy commercial, since we did allow it in office warehouse. And it seems like putting it only in industrial would further limit the options that we would have. So maybe that's the one that I wonder about.
Yeah.
It makes sense about the bakery, based on Gina's explanation and such. It makes sense. The other one, I think also.
Well, that's good feedback on, let's talk about it for half a second. So that's good feedback on the self-storage. One thing the city has to think about is self-storage doesn't provide a great tax benefit to a city. And so we have to consider, where are the heavy commercial zones going to end up going, and do we want heavy commercial in those areas? We do still have some properties that are zoned for office warehouse, but I think we've limited self-storage. So we have 2, and then we were getting a third one, but that property went into Lehigh, so that was on Hardman Way, just a little bit south of 2100. And so there's going to be one right on the border of Saratoga and Lehigh. So it's a good question on, do we want more? Because if we put it in there, we will get more. And so it's a good question on, do we want more? And I think that's a good question for everybody to discuss.
Is the one that's on the border, is that industrial zone?
It was in an office warehouse zone when it was in Saratoga City, and it went into Lehigh because it could be serviced better there, I believe. And I don't know what zone they have.
Oh, I'm sorry, I guess that's not the one I'm interested in. It's the one that you said there's a potential third.
That potential third one was
Oh, it is. Oh, it is.
in
But there is no third.
Saratoga, and we did a boundary exchange with Lehigh, and it went into Lehigh.
Okay, so then I don't care about the zone.
Yeah, we can go store stuff over there.
Yeah, this,
So any thoughts from everybody else on that particular topic? Because we can add it or we can leave it off. So whatever you prefer, we can do that.
I had the same thought that you had mentioned, what's going to be the best, first and foremost, the best financial benefit to the city. And recognizing that people often need a place to store their stuff, but the question is that really going to be the best use of our land here? I don't store anything in storage units unless I move, and I'm not moving.
yeah, but again,
I
other
don't know
people.
what other people do.
A lot of people do. And I don't think that tax base is necessarily the only, the deciding decision, right? There's a lot of things that we do that doesn't provide tax.
Well, if there's other things to consider as well, so.
And
certainly need
there
to-
is one in Eagle Mountain too. So then just within a certain proximity. So, and yeah, 2 of those are in other cities, but so it's a good question on whether we want more. So
I know we limited how many they could be within a certain radius, because we didn't want all of our good
Yeah, they have
land.
considerations
Right.
that
Right.
are not, I can't, foresee this 100%, but I think most of your heavy commercial is probably going to be Pioneer and North, if the council entertains those zones in that area. And I think that half-mile restrictions, for the most part, are going to eliminate most of what areas they could go anyway.
Read about the big one in Eagle Mountain, that's
that's not
It's
too
big,
far,
it's not
and
too
it's
far,
it's a big one. What do you think? Should I add it or leave?
I'm good with the way it is, personally.
Yeah.
Commissioner Ryan, you had ranked.
We can always change it in the
Did you
future
have
if needed.
something you
Well,
want?
yeah, I was just waiting. Yeah, but no, on the areas because on the office warehouses, grandfathered areas, there's still opportunity there, correct? I mean, if we wanted to, just as we're trying to balance this, so we're not necessarily eliminating every option at this juncture.
I think there's one current, did the North Shore commercial, was that allowed office warehouse, or was it
No,
restricted?
It didn't go office warehouse. No, there's the other ones.
No, North Shore
yeah,
Commerce.
the other one.
Not,
No, that concept plan did not have storage units there.
but the DA, did it say? We talked about restricting it, but I don't think it ended up in
I
the
don't think
DA.
it's in the DA.
So there's one other property, the North Shore Commerce property. The other ones that are zoned office warehouse are to the existing
To the existing.
half mile. So there's a potential that we could see one other one on the North Shore Commerce property. So who knows though? They haven't applied since they got their rezone. They haven't applied for a site plan. So I don't know what we'll see there.
I really have this love-hate relationship with storage units. I think everybody does, right? Because they're needed and a lot of people use them, but you don't want
they don't
to
want-
get in your city, yeah.
I totally agree.
Yep.
Well, we only have so much land.
Yeah.
Once it's
We don't want
gone.
to take it up with
we
our,
can't-
yeah, I agree with that.
I don't see many storage units being converted into a nice technology center.
Or something, right.
Okay, so Dave said they have applied and they don't have storage units.
North Shore Commerce does have 3, as was shown on the concept plan.
Okay.
So then no, the ones that are already zoned to office warehouse, because of that proximity and what they've applied for, then I don't think we would get storage on those.
Okay.
I feel there's reasonable driving distance to multiple locations, so I'm comfortable with where we're at.
Okay.
Commissioner Burns, would you like to say anything?
No, not at this time, thank you.
Are we open for additional comments, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Am I okay to go?
Yeah.
So I think I only have one concern on 4 on the heavy commercial definition. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I have a hard time with the aesthetically attractive phrasing.
I understand that. In this situation, it's not a definition per se, it's a intent and purpose. So we can use fluffy language in this situation, but I do understand what you're saying, and we're amenable to changing it as well.
Well, I think the solution is in the document itself. So I think you can get rid of the aesthetically attractive, and everything that you're hoping to cover that makes it aesthetically attractive is in 1960 under the.
That's true.
But if you leave that in there, then again, I feel like it is just that. It's fluffy and,
Right.
you know,
We do have a
Commissioner
lot of.
Kilgore likes blue and I like brown, and which one is better?
Exactly.
But if we get rid of that, we're still covered in the section 191608 is my point. And I just feel like that makes us a lot more concise. And you could even make the same argument for where we use inappropriate areas. It's also covered because we are telling them what the appropriate areas are via. So I feel like we could tighten that up, and we don't risk anything, and we only mitigate our own risk. So that's all I have. Sorry, just a
No,
thought.
that's great. So today we were on a group field trip. The planning staff went on a field trip, and one of the sites we visited was Beacon Point, and their model home is solid black. And at the same time, you had people going, "That's so cool. That's so ugly." So it's just beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So
Yeah, and again, I don't think it costs us anything because everything that we want to accomplish is in 191608.
okay. Is it? What folder?
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner McConkey.
Have to go back to the browse.
And I'm saving, but you can keep commenting because I'm just trying to.
I just had 2 questions. So the building height is limited by this, the side setback when it's against residential zones,
Right.
but not the rear setback, and I'm just wondering why that is.
Oh, I believe the rear setback is as well.
Because the rear setback is
Is it written
30
differently?
feet, I think,
Okay,
We'll
let's
save this one.
go look at
but you're
it.
fine.
Okay. Oh, okay, it's just 30 feet. Oh, I see what you're saying. So here we copied that from how we're treating our other zones. We can do it differently though. So,
It's a little concerning to me just based on some experience in some other cities that we've come across and the level of contention that was caused by putting a 35-foot office building next to a residential zone. I don't know if they may have had 30 feet, but it was not a happy outcome.
So what I can
don't
do
know.
here is 30 feet
I don't know what's
Or
reasonable,
height
certainly.
of building, whichever is greater.
It seems
a little long
fitting
for
to
the
do the
table,
same
but
on each of the, yeah,
We
each,
can,
Basically just mirrors the other zone
yeah.
to the left of it.
which one?
The language, 30-foot or height of building terms adjacent to a residential, but we want to.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Be the same.
We got the intent. We can clean that up.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The other question I had also in the heavy commercial is note 1 limits the number to 80 square feet to every 20 contiguous acres within the same development. What if a development is divided? Then to allow more buildings 80,000 square feet or larger than on every 20 contiguous acres.
Basically, they would have to have 20 acres. We didn't want to say, oh, if you have 5 acres here and 15 acres here, you know, we wanted it to be a site, a heavy commercial site that's 20 acres or more, then you can have one 80,000 square foot building. And if you have 40,000 or 40 acres, then you can have 2 buildings that are 80,000 square feet.
I'm wondering if it can be clarified then that for a lot that size,
Yeah.
because it wasn't overly clear to me. What it did to me was the business side of me said, perfect, then I'm going to do split my development and I can have 2 80,000 square foot because I don't have 20 contiguous acres in the same development.
Okay. Does this help, this IE? Can you read it? I can make it larger.
What do you guys think?
We can look at that too, so I can take note
I'm
of-
just looking just for some clarity so that
Yeah,
it's clearly interpreted.
If you interpret it that way, others will too.
right.
So, yeah, even clarification, and that maybe that'll work, but some sort of clarification that there's a minimum 20 acre lot size.
Oh, okay.
Required.
Gotcha. Okay.
If that makes sense. That's all I had.
Any other comments on this section from the commission? We mentioned briefly dance studio. And I know my experience with those has always been they seem to conflict with the warehouse use when their parents are dropping off and picking up. I know there was one where my daughter went to in Lehigh that was by a sprinkler supply place, and they had conflicts during drop-off and pickup times. The parents for the kids always took up all the parking places for the sprinkler.
Oh, okay.
So, the other thing that I was thinking about is we have like a sprinkler supply and maybe a dance place and then something, maybe another use in there. And what I've seen happen is that the sprinkler supply ends up taking over the dance place and the other one, and they turn the other ones into a warehouse. So what's going to happen with our 30% or whatever? Do you want to come up to so we can hear you?
Yeah, we experienced that in West Jordan, but in one situation at least, the dance studio was occupied or in operation just in the evening hours that were different than the operation of a sprinkler supply. So there wasn't a conflict. So maybe that could be looked on a case-by-case basis?
In this case, it was after-school parents, so it was like still in the day, like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and kids are getting dropped off and picked up. And that's what caused the conflict there. But
Just a quick example to add some context to that, Mr. Chair, down south where the Dodgy Dance Studio is and the orthodontics, like there's a major brawl going on in that parking lot. There's like big signs that have been plastered and this is my space, this is your space. Yeah, so I think that's a good point that you raise.
we need to look at parking for those uses. Commissioner Kilgore, then Commissioner Burns.
Yeah, and my daughter, she's a dancer, and I think in Linden, her studio had to move into an office warehouse zone while they're getting their studio built. And because those buildings all have their entrances faced inward, so there's the main street, and all the buildings had their entrances facing towards that street. That caused that same problem, both during pickup and drop-off, with competing with the other office warehouses because all their entrances were facing into that street. So that was another issue.
I do notice, I've had a child in dance, and I do notice that the end time is the same time as the start time, So one class is ending at 11 and another class is starting at 11. And yeah, we can discuss that and see if there's anything we can put in the code to help those situations.
Commissioner Burns.
Dance is getting hit hard tonight.
Don't not like dance, we just don't want the conflict with the.
Maybe that would fit better in like just in the, I really forgot what I was saying, sorry everyone. Having dance places or sports places have like a better designated drop-off path instead of just having additional parking, have a dedicated drop-off zones and pickup zones, like schools.
It's a great idea.
It is a great idea.
And we can put that in code, right? Something language-wise for that?
And it does become a challenge in the situations that we talked about where a shell is built first and the tenants come in after. And so they don't always know in those situations that it's going to be, one of the users will be dance or gymnastics or some other, taekwondo or something that might have those conflicts. So it adds a little bit of a challenge, but we can discuss it as a group and come up with something that will help those situations.
It may be fitting to have an either-or drive-through setup or a certain number of parking spaces.
Yeah. I think a lot of times too, they need to stagger start and stop times. That's what we've required of home occupations that have dance, is that they stagger those start and stop times. So you're not getting, 40 kids coming and 40 kids going. So, well, in a home occupation, it'd be like 10, right? But
That's
but
difficult
if they're
to do.
all coming and going at the same
Yeah,
time,
no.
that's 20. So that's how we've handled it. Home occupations is that they have to stagger those start and stop times by 15. And I don't know if we want to go that route either. So we can discuss it and come back to you with a proposal at least.
Maybe,
Yeah, and parking is still needed because for dancers, if you're older than 16, then you're going to park. Whereas if you're younger than 16, then your parents drop you off. And that's the same for my son with Taekwondo as well. You have all the Taekwondo kids who are under 16 and they get dropped off by their parents while the 16-year-olds drive and park their cars. I think those are very similar types of situations that you could have a blanket.
I was just thinking maybe we shouldn't just say dance. We probably got Taekwondo, karate, gymnastics.
Boxing.
Basketball.
All the sports, yeah.
There's a bunch.
Yeah.
There's a lot of situations where you can end up with those kinds of issues.
We want those for activities for kids, but we don't want the fist fight in the parking lot with the guy trying to pick up some sprinkler stuff.
Well, and it's sometimes you're like, someone's going to get hit,
Yeah.
Okay, what we'll do, we'll discuss that one as a group and we'll come back. We might not have it in this round, but we can come back. If we can get it into this round, we're trying to move a little bit fast on this, but if we can get it into this round, so my staff report for the next meeting goes out in a week. So if we can get it in there, but then we have to draft it and have legal look at it. It's not quick. So this took 6 weeks to get to you guys.
I would think
So,
with this, let's put it on our calendar to work on it. You know, we were instructed by the council to get this going and through as soon as we can. Plus, we're bound by that 6-month deadline as well. So I think if it's, you know, if you think it's the way to go, as we do, let's just put it on our calendar, we'll work on it, and like Sarah said, the next round, we'll bring something back.
Okay, that sounds good. Is that all you had, Sarah?
there's a couple more chapters. They're quick. Okay, I'll save this one. Go through this, except I already did a save as, so it should be a little quicker. Okay. Parking, there wasn't a big change. So let me change the view here. Like I said, we took out warehouse off of the use table, so then we're taking it out of the parking table, and then we combined industrial and manufacturing. So that just matches what was done there. In this section here, we added architectural requirements for heavy commercial. So we just added heavy commercial where it needed to be added, and then we have this section here on additional standards for heavy commercial. And I can make that bigger. I know it's really small. Why don't I do that? Because I know somebody might be watching on YouTube, right?
Yeah, there's usually like 5 or 6 maybe, if that.
On a good night.
Yeah. When I go back to rewatch it, there's maybe 10 views.
Are there any comments on these? And I borrowed these from other cities, so we won't be the only ones using
This
these.
is what you're talking about, where this tells us what we want, right? We don't need that little frou-frou part in the upper
About
section, okay?
aesthetics, right.
I thought it was actually really well done.
Yeah,
So
this part I
kudos
really
to the
liked.
section.
Yeah.
Great, okay.
great.
And then the last one is super simple, it's just the signage section. And really, there's no change, it's just allowing, it's just adding the heavy commercial. And then they would have the same signage that regional commercial and community commercial have, so. Any other comments? Okay, we will have this on your next agenda in 2 weeks for a recommendation to the council. Many of us, or half of our staff are at a conference. And so Kent will be presenting that on our behalf, so. Great, I'm glad we had a work session first.
Next item is approval of minutes. Has everyone had the opportunity to view the minutes? I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
Commissioner Ryan, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 24, 2022.
Commissioner Ryan with a motion to approve the minutes. We have a second.
I'll second that.
Second for Commissioner Barton. Any question on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. Okay, the minutes are approved. Commission comments. I was going to say, I'm actually going to kind of let Ken give a couple of comments about the breakfast with planners. I thought it was really well attended, and pretty much all of us were here except for Commissioner Anderson. That was great. A lot of good comments from people in the community. What were your thoughts, Ken?
So I think from having done this type of event in other cities, this was the largest so far attendance that I've seen, but by a little bit. But I mean, it's great. We like to see as many as we can, and so we are planning on doing it again in September. 13th is the date that we're targeting at this point, but we'll let you know as we get closer. Do it in the same spot. The thought was maybe this time we'll have our question and answer session with the whole group together at first, and then divide into 2 separate rooms where we can close that curtain so we can take care of the noise factor a little better. But otherwise, I think that that facility worked well and got a lot of good comments from people who appreciated what we were doing. So I think it's a good thing to keep doing. appreciate all of you coming and your support. That was great.
Yes. Any other comments from the commissioners?
I want to say, I'll say something real quick if that's okay.
Go ahead. Yes.
So I just wanted to, so I was able to attend the city council meeting a couple weeks ago because they were talking about something that we had, already talked about. Anyway, they gave us a really great compliment. Troy was watching, I think we were texting back and forth, but one of them, was it Chris?
Chris Porter.
Porter, yeah, he just had said, I trust the planning commission, I know they do their homework, and I thought it was a really nice compliment that they recognized, hey, we do our homework, and so just a kudos to all of you guys, because I really feel like us as a team, we really do our homework, and we really, we care about what we're looking at and stuff like that, but I felt it was really nice of the city council to say something about that, to recognize, hey, we're doing what we should, what we should be doing, right? And so I just wanted to compliment you guys on the in-depth when we come here, how in-depth you guys are with everything, because it really does make a difference.
He also mentioned that we don't say no very often.
Yeah, they were surprised that we send forward a negative recommendation.
Right.
And so they did say that as well. But it was fun to kind of see them and to hear comments. It's great.
I think that reflects on the staff and how well the staff is doing to
Absolutely.
weed out a lot of, in my opinion.
Thank you. I'll see that you get a bonus.
50 cents. No.
Are we good for a director's report now?
Yeah, just echo what Ken said. It was great. I think it was a good location. We'll tweak it, like you said, a little bit. I think it'll make it a better experience next time. And hopefully it be, well, the air conditioner should be on then. Heater should have been on earlier on this one, but no, it was good. I think we got some good comments, good turnout, and look forward to doing that again. Next week, staff and a few of the planning commissioners, I know we're going to be going on a tour. We're going to go up to Holiday and then go over to Farmington Station. SLR is going along with us as well. The GSBS, the consultants for the general plan, will be there as well. We're going to tour and see what some things that we can hopefully incorporate into our general plan and into our future development, and get some ideas for hopefully a city center on the future city center in the SLR property. And so we'll do that tour, and I guess like Sarah said, several of us will be gone at the next meetings, but those commissioners that do attend that next week, if you could maybe give a little report to the planning commission at the next planning commission meeting on that city tour.
Okay, yes, we will.
Who else going? Going? I'm planning on it.
I don't know enough about it.
That was
Next Wednesday.
We had limited room. We invited the two that were on the.
Oh, on the steering committee and the, okay. I guess
I
it's
actually had
us.
a comment earlier.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, the breakfast thing was really good, and it was brought up. This was brought up by one of the people there in the session that I was at. Excuse me. He's a small business owner, and he had mentioned that he wanted to size up, and there was really, at least from what he could find, nowhere in the city to be able to phase up to the to move up to the next phase.
Like
Currently,
as business grows type of thing?
yeah, exactly. And my wife experienced the same thing. We had basically a home occupation business. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, 'cause purpose, years ago. And then she expanded her business to want to have a retail space, but there wasn't anything available in our city, so she ended up having to go to Orem. Now, some of the other cities around us, they're older, and so they have more in and out, more businesses. Their first phase is done, and then they move out and stuff like that. So they have more of that, they're further down in that generational history, and we're new, so we don't have that yet. But she also found other cities like Pleasant Grove where they actually have like a row of, it's almost like it's not a strip mall, but it's kind of like a strip mall where they have about 8 buildings together, and they are reserved for small businesses that the city kind of helps subsidize or at least encourages with lower rent. And that way the small business can stay in the city and get to the next level with a somewhat lower rent. And then if they expand even bigger, then great. Then they could find bigger places to go to in the city. But right now, with Saratoga Springs, it feels like, especially with the comments that this guy made, is that if you're a home business or a small business in Saratoga Springs, to get to the next phase where they have a storefront or a place where they do some light manufacturing or whatever, that they have to leave the city, pretty much. And so I'm not saying that we need to change something. I'm just saying maybe we could, on a work session, or just look at, is there a way where using small business administration loans or some grants or something where the city can partner, with some kind of a grant association that helps small businesses in the city stay in the city, just to get to that next phase where we subsidize maybe rent or a little bit lower cost lease for a space. And it's not a very big space, but it's just that next phase. And that way we could nurture our own here and let them stay here instead of having to move out and then just probably not come back, even though they live here still. So that's just something I'd like to pose to the planners, and just maybe in one of your work sessions think about this, and maybe we talk about it, or we have a report on it or something. What is doable, what's not doable. If it's not doable for the city our size, that's totally understandable. But I'm just wondering if, just not making sure that we don't leave that stone unturned.
If I can make a comment on that. Doug Meldrum said something at the thing on Tuesday about, living here, working here, shopping here, and having a lot of the needs met for the residents as much as possible here, which is certainly a great concept and I think a great goal. I think this is great feedback for the steering committee as well, and that it may be helpful if it's doable and reasonable to have to assess what we have here as far as office buildings and at what stage of business development they accommodate. Maybe there is a need to create some different zones or subzones or whatever to accommodate that and facilitate that.
Any other? So what's on the coming up agenda for us?
Right now, there'll be a couple of site plans, D2D office up on Redwood Road. There is the UFCU, the credit union in Saratoga Springs Commercial, next to KFC. A couple other items. Ken Page may have the rezone that was supposed to be tonight. We're shooting for that one as well to be on there. I don't have the schedule in front of me. Maybe one or two other items on there at this time.
Okay. Do we have a need to go into a closed session this evening?
We do not.
Okay, this meeting will stand adjourned until March 24th.